Okay, welcome to the regular council meeting of Monday, June 24th. I would like to acknowledge that we are gathering and governing on the unceded traditional territory of the what is now known as Comox First Nation, and we are incredibly grateful for their grace and collaboration as we work together to govern these lands. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Move the agenda.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And there's minutes there from regular council meeting June 10th.
Move the approval of the motion minutes from June 10th.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? And no delegations. So Sue Big Oil Campaign. Is someone going to speak to it, or do you just want us to tell you what we're thinking?
Yeah, I think it's really just a council decision. There is a recommendation from the delegation in the document on the agenda, I believe on page 9. And staff would just say that if council is interested in moving forward with something like this, then just we recommend that you would refer or defer the or refer it to the budget process for
Okay.
that piece of it.
Okay. Okay, does anyone have questions or comments about the delegation or the ask here?
Personally, I think $1 a person is a pretty cheap amount to take a bit of a punt. It's, because we are definitely out several $million, I think fairly provably so, just in our wastewater treatment center. So if there's any chance of recovering any of that money, yeah, $5,000 seems like a pretty small price for a substantial return.
4,447. I don't, well, it depends on the census, I guess, at the time. I don't know actually
Yeah.
how that number works.
Yeah.
Anyone else have comments about it?
I feel the risks are low and the probability of recouping some costs for future expenditures is it's worth a gamble. I don't like the the name Sue Big Oil. I think it's more like tax. It's a future-proofing tax that we'll probably end up paying for anyway at the pump. But I think it'll impact the village less, especially in light of some of the larger expenditures that we're probably going to have to deal with.
Yeah, I think it's a responsible thing to do, given that our taxpayers are paying that cost right now, and since we know that oil companies were aware of the damage and the potential impact on communities and weather systems at the time, that it makes sense for us to try and recoup those costs if we can. Councillor Sullivan, I know you didn't get the benefit of the delegation. Do you have questions or anything?
No, yeah, I appreciate the risk reward factor on this one. I
Okay.
support.
Yeah. So does someone want to try and make a motion out of that, including a referral to the budget process for the $1 per person?
Sure. I'll move that staff bring forward a plan to finance this during our budget process this fall.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Is that enough?
Is that enough, Rachel? Do you want more?
That's regarding the financial contribution.
Mhm.
Did council want to make a commitment to joining the class action lawsuit at this time, or did you want to defer the whole thing, the whole request to budget discussions?
Yeah, I think we can say, just add to the motion that we'd like to join the, what's it called?
I can read
Class
it to
action
you
lawsuit?
It says, join with other local governments to file a class action lawsuit to recover a fair share of our climate costs.
That's the one.
Build equitable and sustainable.
Yeah, I think that's good. And with the budget referral.
Second the amendment.
Okay, now all in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Correspondence, City of Courtney Strengthening Community Services Program. So there's a letter here from Mayor Wells. The Strengthening Communities Grant supports an enormous amount of good work that's happening in the City of Courtney, including, I think, I'm not going to try and name all the things, but it's doing a lot of good work that is supporting the unsheltered and homeless populations in the Valley, particularly in the City of Courtney, and they're asking for our support for advocacy to continue that funding, because it looks like it's not continuing. So there's a recommendation there.
I'd like to move the council approve the village's participation and collaboration with the Comox Valley local and regional government partners and discussions with the BC government regarding an extension of the Strengthening Communities Services program for support for unsheltered homeless populations and related community impacts.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? And that's unanimous as well. Okay, approval of public art, 3274 3rd Street. You are not Eric. You are Courtney. Welcome, Courtney.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, Eric authored this report, but he couldn't be here tonight, so I'm presenting it for him. And the purpose of this report is to seek council approval for the existing mural at the property 3274 3rd Street at the Community Urban Bazaar as a recognized piece of public art. The Cub is a proposed urban bazaar located on 3rd Street between True Green Cannabis and Gravity Mountain Bike, and then Riders North to the south. In 2021, Council approved a heritage alteration permit for this community urban bazaar, which would consist of several small single-story commercial buildings and amenities. And included in the site plan and drawings for this heritage alteration permit, there's a blurred image of a small mural on the south side of the building that's currently home to Gravity Mountain Bike. The image was a placeholder for a future mural. Painting of a mural covering the entire south-facing wall began in May 2023, about a year ago. While the mural was being painted, staff advised the owner that council approval was required, and they were advised to pause painting and make an application to council. Around the same time, staff was working with the Legion to seek council approval of a new mural for the front elevation of their memorial hall further down Dunsmuir as public art. The Legion mural was approved by council at the May 29, 2023 meeting. So for this mural at the Cub, the rendering and art was done by Ian Adams of Rome Media Inc. and Comox Valley Collective magazine. Ian was trained in traditional fine art and illustration techniques, including color theory and composition. The painting of the mural itself was done by Nick Hutton J., who has experience leading the creation of over 150 murals across North America. Nick lives in the Comox Valley, and his art is inspired by interaction with the natural environment and Vancouver Island's mountain and oceanscapes. You can see a picture of the mural in the agenda package as well. And the mural was painted to enhance the cultural and aesthetic environment of the community and aligns with policies in OCP Section 8, Community Wellbeing, that encourages public art as an integral component of the community and encourages the installation of art on or within the built environment. So the recommendation is that council approve this mural at 3274 3rd Street as a recognized piece of public art.
Thank you so much. Anybody have questions?
Nick does good work. It's not a question.
It's not a question. It's a lovely mural. But you do need permission to do that.
Yeah, I was just going to comment. For people out there contemplating this, I'd like to see us get more into get the permissions you need and then proceed kind of mindset in Cumberland than much of the past way of just doing it and begging forgiveness later. I don't think this is the place to take a stand on this issue, but I don't know. Yeah, I would
we-
like to see things done in the proper order going forward.
Yeah, me too.
I'm just a big fan of murals. It tends to cut down on random crappy graffiti tagging.
Right?
Not that there aren't some good graffiti artists out there, but this sort of thing is it. Plus, the mural makes me happy. That little happy guy in the bottom lower corner just makes me smile every
It's
time.
really nice. So
I
there's a
approve.
recommendation there.
Move the council approve the existing mural at 3274 3rd Street, legally described as Lot 12, Block 10, District Lot 21, Nelson District, as a recognized piece of public art.
Second.
All in favor? And that's unanimous. Looking forward to those micro unit business things coming any time now. Okay, development permit 2956 Ulverston Avenue. Come on up, Seamus. Do you have a score to the hockey game, Seamus?
I do not know. I was
Okay.
watching. I was actually watching
That's
you guys
okay.
before I came over, so
That's
dedicated to the cause.
That's good of
Dedicated.
you. Thank you.
Or I guess we have
That
some
man a
Oilers.
raise.
Got some Oilers fans in the crowd.
General hockey.
Just acknowledging it's a big day.
Fair play. All right. So good evening, Mayor and Council. So for the purpose of my report today is to introduce or discuss development permit 2023-03 DP at 2956 Ulverston Avenue. So 2 development permits are proposed for today. Development Permit Area 1 for environmental protection, and Development Permit Area 5 for industrial form and character. So I'll just start with the Development Permit Area 5, the industrial form and character bit. So the applicant is proposing 2 structures on the property, one of which is a modular for Hakai Solar, and another is a canopy on the rear of the existing main industrial building. So the modular is basically to expand upon Hakai Solar's existing operation, which is operating out of a modular at the front. And this is just a second modular to expand upon that operation. So the modular is designed to look exactly the same as the one that is there. So matching existing massing, roofline, as well as materials, which include black and gray paint and concrete boards skirting on the modular. The canopy at the rear of the structure, the main industrial building, will have roofing painted to match that of the principal structure, with a plastic zipper cover to help keep rain out. And this canopy is just designed as a temporary measure while a permanent expansion of the building is planned, and is just to act as a storage and staging area as they move materials into the main building. Overall, the site, many of the Development Permit Area 5 design criteria have been captured in previous development permits, so there's no new landscaping or screening upgrades required at this time. And the new structures do meet zoning bylaw criteria for height, setbacks, lot coverage, and parking. And the applicant has also dedicated an area specifically for bike parking as well. So overall, with the 2 structures themselves, there are no concerns with the form and character or design of those structures. Now over to the Development Permit Area 1 side for environmental protection. So it is noted that the Hakai Solar structure and canopy are sited outside of the riparian areas and sited inside the disturbed area, which generally does not trigger Development Permit Area 1. However, during a staff site visit, it was observed there were some encroachments into riparian areas along the ditch 1 on the north side of the property, as well as the QEP qualified environmental professional observed some additional encroachments on the east side along Maple Creek. So we triggered Development Permit Area 1 to help clean up some of those issues, and as such, the applicant did obtain a qualified environmental professional to help advise on what the best courses of action were. And the QEP's report was quite clear. It made recommendations to decommission that paved area observed along Ditch 1 at the north of the property, as well as the gravel storage area along the east property line along Maple Creek. The QEP also recommended plantings for the plantings in the area that were to be remediated, as well as SPIA fencing to avoid future encroachment. So just basically fencing off the SPIA areas to make sure it doesn't happen again. Applicant is agreeable to all these considerations proposed by the QEP and is advised that planting will begin in the fall, just because that's the best planting window at this point. And one thing to note too is the QEP recommended the streamside protection setback. So that's the setback between the water course and where you can develop on that ditch one on the north property, could actually be dropped to 2 meters. As it was determined in the report, it was not a fish-bearing stream. So they determined that it was mainly just a drainage ditch, and the setback could be adjusted as such. Overall, staff are satisfied with the recommendations from the qualified environmental professional to remediate the encroachments. And all things considered, we're happy with where we're at with that permit. So thank you for your time, and happy to answer your questions.
Questions, anyone? And so when we're in a situation like this where they need to do some remediation, do we wait for them to do the remediation before we give them the go-ahead, or we do it all in one package?
Yeah, so it'll be done all in one
Yes,
package.
okay.
So we can put a condition on the building permit that it's done prior to final inspection on those
Okay.
buildings. So it would just hold that up.
Awesome, great. I
Yeah.
know that Maple Creek is a very important tributary to the Trent River, so we want to keep that healthy. So thank you for that, for cleaning that up. There's a recommendation.
I'll recommend the council approve, or I'll move the council approve the development permit 2023-03 DP for the property described as Lot 1, District Lot 24, Nelson, District Plan 50021, except Part and Plan VIP 53295 2956 Ulverston.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, and all in favor? That's also unanimous. Thank you, Seamus.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, and on to Cumberland Climate Action Plan. Come on up, Karen, and welcome Lexi and Nick. Online, they're online, everyone.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, I'm happy to be here this evening to present the final climate action plan for your review and hopefully approval. The plan went through a process that started, I guess, towards fall last year with some review of data and information that the village provided and the consultants were able to gather, and then public consultation in February this year, and then again most recently in May. The consultants will talk to that a little bit more. I just want to perhaps highlight some of the report highlights some of the key recommendations that we're already starting to work on, partially as a result of this plan, partially something that was already in the works. So that is a green fleet policy. We have a draft, so that will come back to council in the near future. Then also there's an intent to update the building bylaw, which would review possible adoption of a net zero carbon step code. And then there is a property and facilities reviews plan, so we're exploring whether we can integrate development of a roadmap to assess how best to decarbonize municipal buildings with that project. So these things are happening in the near future, and at the community level there's a few things that are already in the works as well that the consultants will speak to. We do have some funding, so this does require some a commitment of resources, which you can then review as part of your financial planning process. So there's some provincial funding, initial provincial funding available initially to help with some implementation and/or with a resource person to apply for some of these grants that are out there, and there's quite a few out there, and the consultants will have a brief overview slide of the possibilities there. So with that, I'll just hand it over to Nick and Lexi to present on the plan.
Thanks, Karen. Go ahead when you're ready, guys.
Great, thanks. I'm going to quickly try to navigate how to share my screen in Zoom. Oh, no, that's just me. This is after practicing, too. I normally use Zoom, so
Go ahead,
please
share
tell
your
me once it works. Nope, it's still not working. Share screen. I can do this. Sharing screen 2. Is that working now?
Coming. Yep.
Okay, great. Perfect. Yeah, I normally use Teams, so trying to revert to Zoom, like in the old days 3 years ago, was a little tricky. Thanks, Karen. Yeah, we'll quickly go over, we'll just provide a quick review of some of the steps and some of the slides we had last time just to refresh everybody's memory, and then we'll kind of get into a bigger picture focus of what's next. But before I start, I just wanted to say what a pleasure it has been working with Karen and Courtney and Rob and the whole crew at the Village, as well as meeting all the community members through the various engagement events. It's been really rewarding, and I'm very excited to see what comes next. There's been just so much enthusiasm and energy around this. It's really it's been a wonderful experience. So thanks to everybody for your support. Okay. Clicking. So just as a quick overview, we presented this before, but today is sort of the final step in our journey with this project. Oh, did you lose me?
You're
Are we
good.
still here?
You're here now.
I'm okay. Great. So this has been about 6 or 7 months of hard work from everybody on the team, and we're thrilled that we were able to present the plan. So tonight's the final presentation. And as we discussed previously, this is a combination of both mitigation and adaptation. So the plan addresses both greenhouse gas reductions as well as adaptation measures to address climate change considerations. So we've got both of these included in the plan, both at the community level and at a corporate level. And what we're trying to do is focus on 6 primary areas. And so within each of these areas, we've identified several key goals that will help to ensure that we're on the right path. So we have buildings and energy, transportation, land use, waste, parks and environment, community and health, and governance. And within these, there are just a handful of goals within each one of these. And we have several actions for each of those goals that are integrated into the plan. And I'm going to pass it over to Nick to talk a little bit about the mitigation side first.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Lexi, and thank you, everyone. Good to see you all. Yeah, as we've presented before, targets have been put in line with provincial, federal, and in fact Paris Agreement targets. So we're looking for ways to contribute towards a reduction of 45% by 2030 and a complete reduction in carbon emissions by 2050. As part of that, we remind ourselves that not everything is under our control or even influence, but a municipality has direct control over land use planning, building codes, transportation infrastructure within our area, how we use our green space, and the assets of the village itself. We can influence federal and provincial legislation and the ways that waste is managed, maybe a little bit of influence over availability of technologies, but that's a market and regulatory side, and then individual community member efforts, and then really beyond our control is anything connected to aviation, marine transportation, and major industrial production, and items like commercial distribution, and many other factors. So when we look at the actions that were developed through this plan, through extensive consultation and work and analysis, the actions add up to, in the end, effectively the ability to reduce about 1/3 of the expected emissions by things that we can directly do or influence. Now, the chart suggests, as you can see, the end turns upwards by 2050, which is not the answer we want. The reason for that is population growth increases the business as usual emissions. And the answer and solution to that is that the 2/3 of the emissions in 2050 and even on the way up that are in the sort of remaining emissions grey piece are expected or need to be addressed by jurisdictions outside of our control. So if we can do our part, we can take about 1/3 of these emissions out of the cycle. So there we are. We have that direct influence, indirect, and external, and the external factors. So I got ahead of myself a little, Alexi.
Oh, that's okay. I was trying to be clever with how we presented the slides.
Yeah, good. Excellent. So So the plan allows us to you have to make a significant impact, and as you can see, there's really 3 color bars there that come from 3 core actions. Alexis, do you want to go back to the previous slide? Because here we go. And as mentioned in the summary and in the report, the 3 big things we can put in our minds that we really need to think about, as well as the smaller pieces. How can we support the retrofit of existing buildings? Buildings being an enormous consumer of particularly natural gas and other fossil fuels. How can we make sure that new buildings are as close to net zero as possible, as quickly as possible? And then the one that has been a bit of a hidden one for everybody, but is huge, is the amount of methane that is released by the waste sent to the Waste Management Centre. And because we've got composting for single-family dwellings, we're already down that path, but we really need to work out ways of reducing compostable materials coming out of commercial and multifamily and other sources. And so those are 3 big ones, and then there's a lot of other stuff we can do around. Hey.
Great. Thanks, Nick. So through that analysis, we identified some fairly big moves, but we really wanted to make sure we were validating that against what we heard from the community in terms of priorities and from all of you as well. And so we've had multiple successful engagement sessions. So these are some facts and figures just to provide some context. And we've been very careful about trying to integrate all the staff feedback into the plan as well, so that we've really done the best we can to listen to what we're hearing and taking all this analysis and pulling it together into a comprehensive plan that aligns with what people want in the village, and also where we think the priority actions need to be identified and acted upon. So some of the main ideas that came out of this were thinking about what we can do that integrates actions that support all of Cumberland and also have an impact on all of Cumberland. So we talked about these whole of community approaches and integrating different components and different groups who are already working on this into working together towards common goals. We also heard very clear we needed to really enhance the sense of urgency for the measures. So we initially put out a few that we were told we're not being aggressive enough. We really need to focus. The time is now. We need to act now. And so we responded to those as well and integrated those into the plan. So overall, it was a wonderful experience, and it was great getting all of that feedback. And so in terms of this, we had several big moves that were identified and seemed to be agreed upon generally by most participants in our engagement sessions. And so here we have them here. And I apologize, I'm looking over on my other screen. That's why it's larger. So the main ones under buildings and energy were, of course, looking at any kind of retrofits that we can undertake, especially on some of the village buildings like the rec center, as well as adopting zero carbon step code as soon as possible. Under transportation, the highlight there was the green fleet policy, which we've talked about a little bit already. And then, as Nick was mentioning, on the waste side, really looking at composting and determining whether there are other ways that we can look at reducing the amount of garbage that goes into the waste stream and overall reducing waste waste generation rates. And then on climate preparedness and adaptation, these are a few of the major items that we identified. One was thinking about what we can do in terms of green infrastructure and really using the natural assets that we already have in place and enhancing those. And then on the community and health side, definitely responding to emergency situations was considered high priority. And we've talked a lot at the engagement sessions about Fire Smart as well. And then there are some of these other activities here. So those are pretty much the big moves that came out of the engagement sessions. And so we had an opportunity to go through those and capture as much as we could in terms of the potential impact from a cost perspective, as well as who we thought would be driving those activities. So understanding that we need to to actually identify plans and actions so that we can implement some of these activities. And so we have identified some preliminary implementation timelines, and those are included in the plan. I believe that was circulated to everybody. And so these are some of the key ones. So where we have been able to, we've identified kind of these cost buckets. So we just sort of identified them in terms of ranges so that we can get an idea. I know those are very broad ranges, but it's hard to understand necessarily what's included in each of these until you sometimes dig into them a little bit more. But these were the big moves that we'd identified and some of the associated costs and responsibilities. And we say there are some that we know are in progress already. So these are the ones on the right that are under consideration and action is happening in real time. And then there are other ones where we want to get started as soon as possible. So those are included in kind of the next few years as recommendations for implementation. And so within those, there are a lot of little sub-actions. So we can drill into the details more in the plan. And then I know that one of the first questions is, well, how do we resource this? We don't have enough people, we don't have enough time, we don't have enough money. Well, there are funding mechanisms available, especially through the Green Municipal Fund. There are quite a lot of opportunities for financing some of the village's more corporate activities, such as retrofitting or doing deep energy retrofits on the rec center, for example. It won't cover everything, but it can support those efforts. So this is also included in some of the materials that we provided in the plan. But these are some examples of opportunities to approach these different organizations for funding that really do align well with what we're trying to achieve. So I think I'll pass it back to Nick to kind of bring us home.
Thanks. Yeah, I think the message here is that we've been aware of all this for a while, and Cumberland has been very strong at thinking about climate impacts all the way, and the plan helps to bring all that into focus. And action is already underway. There's a lot of progress within the village. The work we're doing in the OCP and the Transportation Master Plan can integrate the results we have here. We've recently seen an RFQ issued for the EVs for village fleet electrification. Very pleased to see that coming out. And we're seeing climate increasingly being thought about in all sorts of policy development. Someone told me that the APC were looking at mobile vending and took came at a climate action piece for composting the waste from mobile vending and talking about the use of combustion fuel generators. A small example of how this is being addressed and thought about at every level. We see community initiatives. The report highlights an example of Triala Yogurt's new facility and the consideration and care that's gone into some of the climate favourable attributes of that. And we know that we're working with Community Forest Society. We've also had discussions and action taking place for increasing the urban forest canopy. So this momentum is already strong, and as we implement on this plan and keep these issues front of mind, I'm heartened by the progress we already see. So, what do we take away from this today as we hopefully go forward and approve this plan and move to action? The plan's all about greenhouse gas reduction and preparedness. Some of these changes are baked in, and we need to know what's coming and be ready for that. There's some big moves, and they have the biggest impact, of course, but the small moves matter too. We need to do everything as much as we can. It's got to be urgent, and implementation is already underway. And whilst we've got varying levels of control and influence over emissions, everyone's making progress, and there continues to be positive news coming out at international and federal and provincial level. It's because we've all got to work together to do as much as we can on this, and it's gratifying to see Cumberland's enthusiasm and motivation to act. So, thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Council? Comments?
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, thanks a lot, you guys. Quite a comprehensive report. My goodness. The finances you mentioned at the end, obviously, are front of mind, and the tiny village that we're in, we've really had a difficulty spending any sort of money on these kind of things, so that's obviously my main concern. Some of these, the 2030, some of the numbers are very aggressive. You know, I'm curious, like the metrics on how many retrofits are happening in the village per year now, and that we're hoping to have 387 in the next 6 years, definitely seems aggressive. So I'm just kind of wondering how we get to those points, and just like zero step code is great, but with no buildings that we have, we need to build them all. Like, we got to watch out about shooting ourselves in the feet by not being able to afford building the new buildings that we want to make all super fancy. So I think zero step code and affordable housing kind of bash heads in my brain. So that's sort of what I'm concerned about this, but I'm happy that this is going to be embedded in the staff zeitgeist, and moving forward, going to make all these small changes and big changes. But yeah, it's a really comprehensive and awesome report. I'm just hoping that we can use this information and gain the ground that we're hoping to. Yeah, thanks, guys.
Anybody else?
Yeah, similar to Sean, I'm wondering how we incentivize these retrofits. One of the lines I noticed on page 141, I think it was we would follow what Vancouver is doing. What is Vancouver's laws currently to incentivize these retrofits?
Lexi, do you have that?
I was actually trying to find page 141.
Page 141,
so I
right in
think
the middle.
the alignment there was when we were. I don't know exactly what Vancouver is doing right now, but I know what they're doing in terms of the step code. They're requiring it at different levels, and they're requiring that climate adaptation be considered, and they're requiring that they've got the plans to ensure that there's going to be cooling provided in any residential multifamily buildings going forward. I don't know exactly when that's coming into play, maybe in 2030 or earlier, that any major retrofits are going to require cooling, for example. So I think that what the feedback was there was that we were responding to what we heard at the engagement sessions, where we were hearing people say, if Vancouver can do it, somebody else is already leading the way, then we can follow along to what they're planning to do. I'm not going to try to provide details in real time because I don't have them available.
Yeah. My understanding of that is there is some policy moves in Vancouver to regulate existing buildings in terms of replacement of equipment as it fails. So effectively say that I believe that if you're using fossil fuel heating and it comes time to replace that, there's a regulatory environment to move towards electrification. Whether Vancouver does have some different sort of jurisdiction and abilities to I believe, a different charter. So the degree to which we can align with that, but it is an example of practice that we could look to going forward.
Okay, great. And then a second question I had, I'm guessing, and this is more for staff, we're going to try and implement a lot of this Fire Smart in the upcoming tree bylaw that's coming?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So the OCP and also the tree bylaw, potentially. We did share a draft of the tree bylaw with the Regional Fire Smart Resilience Committee, I believe, Comox Valley Regional Fire Smart Resilience Committee. They provide some input. That project is still coming to you, partially delayed just because of resourcing and the OCP going forward right now, but they provide some good input. So to make sure the tree bylaw is in line or aligns well with the Fire Smart principles. And then as part of the OCP review, we are looking at our wildland urban interface development permit area and see what needs to be updated there.
Okay, great.
Is that it?
And then, try to bring this up. Lastly, I'm going to, probably shoot myself in the foot here a little bit. I think, currently we have banned wood stoves in the village in new builds. But what provisions are we giving for secondary sources of heat in the event of electrical failures and things like that? I know that this would be a lot easier to swallow for a lot of people if they can still have some kind of a secondary source of heat where their heat pumps are their primary, but there's something they can rely on if those fail.
Yeah, currently that's in a separate bylaw, the wood stove, solid fuel burning bylaw that restricts wood stove
But I
in new
think the
construction.
0 step allows for gas fireplaces. It's just not the main source of heating and cooling. Do you know that off the
I
top of your
don't
head?
know.
Or
We'll
do you
review
guys know
that when
off
that
the top of your
bylaw
head?
gets reviewed, but
Yeah.
I don't know if Courtney wants to add to that, but part of that bylaw review, the building bylaw review, will look at that.
Yeah.
So just a clarification, Councillor Therian, so you're asking about the solid fuel burning appliances bylaw?
Yes.
And which has been in place for a while. And you were wondering if,
Well, if we start mandating that everybody has to build heat pumps as primary sources as we go forward, are we going to be looking at how they can provide secondary heating?
yes, I understand, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think, as was said, then we'll look at the details of that as we look at the bylaw
Okay.
process. And the good news is we have some other jurisdictions who are ahead of us on that, so we can learn from those same questions that have probably come up in their communities and how they tackled them as well.
Anything else?
No, that's what I got for now.
So thank you for this. Councillor Berkey, did you have anything before I go?
I just there's a very comprehensive report, and thank you very much for all your work on it. And mine's more of a comment about, I think there's a lot to be done with our existing infrastructure, just in terms of buildings and that, and new builds, no matter what, they consume a lot of resources, and that if we're going forward as a small community, I think our best bang for our buck in many ways is to adapt with what we have. I know we're going to have some very big decisions to make surrounding our infrastructure here, particularly the rec center and things like that. But I like the idea of not using more and perhaps just retrofitting what we have. So that's more of an overall comment on it. Thank you for all the hard work as well. I was surprised that transportation was so low on the list in relation to those other big three there. So, but I think not just from a village, but if we can get the active transportation plan in play and get that active corridor, as a community, we'd see a lot more folks out on their electric bikes.
And if we could get that electric bike pilot in Courtney to move into Cumberland, that would also help.
Yeah, I was wondering, I think we just have to write them and ask that they allow the geofencing to come off those bikes, actually. And from what I've seen, it's being very well used and very well received. I don't have the numbers, but they're always out and about, and I don't think the boogeyman that they were all going to get stolen or ripped off is actually coming to fruition. I think it's actually being very well received down there too.
Yeah. Courtney, did you have something?
I just wanted to mention that we, in terms of the one of the top actions, which was the home energy retrofits, we do have an ongoing program right now that council has funded in part and is being run by the regional district on the region's behalf, which is called the Home Energy Navigator Program. And we're doing what we can as a region to get the word out. So far, the uptake has been slow, but we do understand from other jurisdictions that it does take a little while for the word to get out and for people to try to take part in it. So that is underway. So please spread the word and come and get some help with your home energy retrofits.
And we just go on the regional district website to find that out. I know a few people who have availed themselves of that resource, and they're incredibly happy. And folks in this village that you might not think would go down that route.
And there's put link on our website as well, probably somewhere too.
Yes, that's right. It is linked
Yeah.
from our website and on the Regional District website, Home Energy Navigator. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Go for it, people. Yeah, and I know the greenest building is the one that you don't tear down, and so it would be great to find funding to support the owners of old buildings that need to be retrofit and support them in doing those renos. So, but I think the biggest thing to address all of our concerns about how to implement this is to hire a coordinator who then can apply for all the grants and find all the nifty little tricks of moving these things forward. So I'm grateful that the coordinator is in there, and as a priority, we just need to figure out where we would put said person, because our facilities are too small, but that's another story. And also appreciate the nod to geothermal that's in there, and our own energy generation, whether that's solar or, because that's just like printing money. And we just had our student from the ACIT program in the village last weekend, doing the initial stage of investigation to see whether or not we can use our old mine workings for a heat exchange system in our buildings. So let's do that. So thank you for all your work and the great community engagement. Yeah, it was a really good plan. A really good, not the plan. It's the plan's really good, but also the building of the plan is really good. So thank you for that process. Thank you. Plan and process was really good. So thank you for that. If there's no other questions, there's probably a recommendation there. Yep.
I'll move that council approve the climate action plan.
Yeah,
That's it.
sure.
Thought it would be longer.
Someone want to second that?
Second.
All in favor? That's unanimous as well. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sweet.
All righty.
Let's get to work.
So 2023 Statement of Financial Information. You're not Andrea, you're Annie. Hi.
Hello, Council and Mayor and Council. All right, so the purpose of this report is to present the 2023 Statement of Financial Information to Council for approval. The SOFI is a statutory requirement and must be prepared and filled with the province within 6 months of the fiscal year end. And staff recommends that Council approve the 2023 SOFI report tonight. Any questions?
This is more or less
It's the same, we've seen it so many
Yeah,
times.
this is the
Yeah.
same financials we
Except
looked
our-
at last
Yeah.
week.
Our
isn't it?
spending is very low because it's only from November of 2020. Oh, no, it's November of
It's a
20.
full year.
Oh, no, it
This
was a full
January
year.
to December.
It looks really light to me, but I'm fine with that.
I'll
Thank you, yep.
I'll move that council receive the 2023 Statement of Financial Information Report, and that council approve the Corporation of the Village of Cumberland 2023 Statement of Financial Information for filing with the ministry.
Second.
All in favor? And that's unanimous too. We're getting dangerously close to the end of the meeting. Everyone's very excited about getting out of here to watch some kind of game. So, next is solid waste collection contract.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Seems to be every time I'm up here, I'm the bearer of bad news, so
It's only 48%.
I just seem to be the lucky guy.
Like you, just not the reports.
Anyways, just a quick overview. As council is aware, we did a joint RFP with the regional district for solid waste collection. Unfortunately, we only got one response. There's a list of reasons why, and one of them is mainly a short time frame, so the other companies weren't really interested. Yeah, it's a big increase. It was a shock to staff too. And we actually went back and spoke with the proponent a number of times to try and get them to sharpen their pencils, and had some discussions on, asked for more reasons, I guess, as to why, you know, we saw the sharp increase, which again are summarized in the report. So, yeah, there's not a lot of options. I mean, thankfully, the smart finance people have been putting reserves away for the solid waste stabilization rate increases that, you know, we could see coming. So there is some money there available. The recommendation from staff is to move forward with a year and a half option for the 42,500 this year, and the increase next year. And then hopefully by then we've completed our review on the card system and have a report to council and some direction on how we want to proceed with future solid waste collection. So I don't know. I don't have any good news on this one.
Start
but
our own garbage collection.
The in-house finally.
yeah.
Well, I have a question. I'm just wondering whether, so this increase is going to happen, then we're going to, in that interim period, the whatever 16 months or 18 months, then we'll review the cart system, see whether or not we can do it. Then do we expect another increase because the cart system is more expensive, or do we have that? Do we know that yet?
So all we can do is base it on kind of what the current rates are for the existing system, and it's very close to that. So we'd have to look down the road. Probably speak with the collection contractor now,
Right.
Because we do have an option to join that contract, but we haven't spoken with the collection contractor on what those rates would look like. So we'd have to verify what they are, but our understanding is both ourselves, the regional district, and Comox First Nations have the ability to also be included in that CART program.
Which theoretically would make it more affordable.
Well, you've got the added cost of the CART and the administration of that, right? So it is costlier, but you know, so the information we have now is the costs are very comparable.
Oh, okay.
So, at this point, I think
Yeah. Okay.
half as much more than the card system.
Yeah. Councillor Therrien?
Yeah, I had one question. When you mentioned a short time frame, are you referring to the length of the contract?
Correct.
Okay, I see. Okay. Yep.
Go ahead.
Are you,
Councillor Berkey.
are you finished?
Yep.
I didn't realize, I mean, we're a bit over a barrel here, given that there's been one respondent to this. How does this, do you know roughly, and you may not have to answer, how it compares with other communities and what they're paying? Or have you seen this 48% across the board?
Well, I can't speak for other communities outside of the valley. I know
Yeah.
it's close to what they're paying for the CART system
Yeah.
in the valley. So, unfortunately, costs have jumped post-COVID in a number of areas, and
Yeah.
I think the challenge going into COVID was they were having a hard time sourcing personnel to actually drive
There's someone
trucks and
different
collect the
on back of
garbage,
the
right?
truck
So,
every week.
Yeah.
Every week, someone different for sure.
and so you've seen a sharp increase in wages, I think, over the last 2 years.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially for the folks who are living in the community and doing those jobs. I mean, but
Well, they need some retention. Jeez. Yeah.
So the reserve is at just over 300,000, and we're using 42.5 this year. And then what next year? Is it the same again next year?
Well, the impact versus what's been budgeted, included in the proposed plan for 2025, I think is 120,000 for the full year.
Okay.
And so staff proposes to bring different options during budget discussion
Okay.
to kind of see, are we looking only at increasing the rates, maybe using some of that money put aside, or a combination of the two? And
I'll move the council approve the award of the solid waste collection service contract to MTR Environmental for the period starting July 1st, 2024 and ending December 31st, 2025, and the council authorize the chief administrative officer to execute the contract, and the council allocate an additional $42,500 from the general finance stabilization reserve for the 2024 solid waste collection services, and that council direct staff to bring forward an amendment to the adopted 2024-2028 financial plan bylaw to reflect this funding reallocation.
Second.
Fast talking. All in favor?
Game
And
time.
that's unanimous.
Thank
you.
you.
Now we're on to bylaws. Municipal ticket information amendment bylaw. Who knew we had so many things we could ticket for?
We did.
Go ahead, Rachel.
We could. We don't.
We did.
I think that the bylaw compliance policy does have the first steps is compliance, of course, and working with residents to resolve issues before ticketing is done. So this bylaw was triggered by the adoption of that community nuisance abatement bylaw, which replaced the prevention of public nuisances bylaw. So basically we're just removing those old ticket references to the old bylaw, introducing the sections of the new community abatement bylaw or nuisance abatement bylaw. And the fines have gone up a bit because by the time you ticket, it's at that point. There is an early pay option for people who receive a ticket at 50% of the fine. When we were doing that update, we thought it was time to update the staff designations for which
Right.
staff positions can issue those tickets. So that's Schedule A that's attached to the bylaw here. So we're recommending first three readings of that bylaw.
Questions, anybody?
Straightforward.
I will move that council give first, second, and third reading to the municipal ticket information and amendment bylaw number 1212/2024.
Second.
And all in favor? And that is unanimous as well. All right, one more. Wastewater upgrade project loan authorization.
This bylaw is being brought forward to you at the close of the alternative approval process for the loan authorization. We went through that process, and I think 348 forms were required to prevent you from adopting the bylaw, and we received 17 forms. So we're recommending council adopt the bylaw tonight. Then there's a 30-day court challenge period, and after that period, if there's no challenge, then staff can go ahead and proceed with the financial end of that.
How does a court challenge happen?
A citizen would have to apply
Like
to
just
the
one?
court. Yeah.
Just one?
I'll just
To make a statement that the procedures, the correct procedures weren't followed in the adoption of the bylaw and the approval process.
Hopefully those 17 people aren't listening.
Confident the correct procedures were applied.
Definitely.
Thank you for
Me too.
Cumberland for having confidence in this and
I'll
realizing
move
it
that
has to go
council
forward.
adopt, sorry.
Oh,
Wastewater upgrade project loan authorization number 2, bylaw number 1207/2024.
second.
All in favor? And that's unanimous too. Yes, thank you.
sorry,
Cumberland.
do they need to receive the
Oh, and that council receive the alternative approval process certification of results.
Oh,
Second.
yeah. All in favor?
There, let's make sure the procedure is correct.
Yes. Yes. Okay, notices, motions, and announcements. There's a hockey game. I hope everyone's watching it. Hope someone has a score. Heritage Committee is June 27th at 4 p.m. in council chambers. Please do check the website and make sure that the meetings that I'm announcing are actually happening at that time, because things change sometimes. Are there any questions?
There are no questions.
No questions, so I'm gonna ask for adjournment, please.
Move adjournment.